Hey everyone, we're here at PRI. I'm with my friend Tom and we're at the SCAT booth. They have a lot of cool new stuff going on. Tom, give me a short little introduction of what you guys got going on this year.
Well, this year, you know, the latest and greatest as far as the late model engines, we're into it. We make the LS, we make it for all the modular Ford, and then of course we have the Hemi Chrysler also. So that's where the push is now. You know, the old 350 Chevy and the 351 Fords, we still do boatloads of business. That's still great stuff. But, you know, as things move on, the factories have given us some new platforms to work with, so we're right into it.
And talking about your late model stuff, let's start with the LS because that's an insanely popular platform a lot of people are using. And what are you guys doing on this new crankshaft?
Well, the problem is, of course, weight is a big issue with the factories. So they've gone to, obviously, aluminum cylinder heads, aluminum block, and what have you. And the crankshaft, you know, when you talk about tensile strength, the crankshaft is 145, 150,000, you know, the tensile strength, that's what it takes to move it around. And your block, your aluminum block, is similar to a cast iron block. It's at 35 to 36,000. So the strongest piece in the engine is the crank, and of course it has to hold everything together. And if something comes apart, the crank is the last to go. But we have to do things that you know, help the block along. And one of the things that we've done with the LS, we've come out with a new crank forging that has center counterweights on it, and that prevents the crank from, you know, inside the engine, the crank can, we call it jump rope. And the LS engine, they switched the thrust from the rear main bearing, number 5 main bearing, to the number 3 main bearing to prevent that from happening. But they didn't put a counterweight in the center. So they still have that issue. And of course, as the block moves, the crank says, no, you're not. And what happens? Well, they fight each other. So putting the center counterweights on it, what that does, because the number 3 main bearing has a counterweight on one side, but on the throw, on the number 2 throw, the number 4 throw, you've got a counterweight on each side, but you don't have it next to the number 3 main bearing. So by putting that extra counterweight on there, not only does the center thrust help, but then with that, it prevents the crank from wiggling when it shouldn't.
And you also did something new with your connecting rods for those center counterweighted LS crankshafts, correct?
Well, the problem with connecting rods is that everybody wants lightweight stuff. But in a connecting rod, weight is what counts, because without the weight, you don't have the metal, you don't have the strength. Now the problem is you got to balance it. So we've done some things with the rods, especially the H-beam rods, which, you know, there's different opinions. I-beam, H-beam, which is stronger. Don't want to get into that debate, but with the H-beam rod, we had to take some weight out of it in an area that was not critical as far as strength. And that area was a hole right above, on the center line, right above the main, you know, the big end journal. And that took 20 grams out of each rod, which reduced the weight of the bob weight by 40 because you've got 2 rods on a throw. And by reducing that, that saved a piece of Mallory. And the LS engine, when they built that engine, they shortened the block, and which means that the end counterweights are not as thick as they are on the 350 or the big block, whichever. And of course, that's where most of the balance was corrected. The LS doesn't have that, so we have to put Mallory in it to get it to balance. Well, by taking care of the connecting rod, you know, there's always you know, we're racers. You know, we can be scientific, but we're not. We just look at a problem and we say, well, you know what? Let's put a hole there. Well, there you go. It worked.
And you also have some new stuff in other late models as far as Ford and Chrysler. Talk to me about the changes you've made in those and what you have going on.
Well, you know, Ford, Chrysler, and GM, you know, there's a constant battle in Detroit, and they, you know, one's on one corner of the city, one's on the other corner. So we have stuff for the modular Ford engine. We have the stroker cranks, we have the connecting rods and things, rotating assemblies. And then with the new Hemi, we have the same, because all 3 of them have the same issues. They got a block, they got a crank, they want to make horsepower. Well, horsepower causes, you know, problems. So we had to come up with a better crank. We had to come up with more cubic inches so that they can, you know, go and run against each other, and in the bar later talk about who was faster.
And to sum up all of your late model changes, all the things you have here at the booth, what is one message you want to send out to everybody that might be looking at a SCAT crankshaft?
Well, SCAT, You know, the SCAT is a manufacturer. You know, we have 40,000 square feet of machine shop in Redondo Beach. We've been around. I started the company in 1962, so we've been around just short of 60 years. We've exhibited at SEMA. We're one of the oldest exhibitors there, the same as PRI. And we've been making cranks a long time. We have a wealth of knowledge, and part of what you buy when you buy a SCAT product is that knowledge. And we have technical people starting at my desk and working down that if you've got a problem, we can talk to you and work it out. And we try to take these things in two areas, not only in the quality of the product, but we try in the catalog to answer the questions that customers might have. And so that's part of what you buy. And I think we have a leg up on the other guys when it comes to, you know, just brain power. And I hope my guys don't short me on that, but I think, you know, in all seriousness, but we do have that. And that's part of what you buy.
All right, Tom, thanks a bunch for taking the time, showing us your new crankshafts, talking about the tech behind them. If anybody wants to find out more information about your stuff, where can they go?
Well, you can go to www.scatcrankshafts.com. That's one place. We have social media. I'm an old guy, so I'm not exactly technical, but you guys that know how to work all that, you can just pull up SCAT, and we have ongoing postings every day. The other thing, obviously, is just call us. We're in Redondo Beach. Our phone number is 310, area code 310-370-5501. And our lovely receptionist, Sylvia, will connect you with one of the guys. And, you know, whatever we can do for you, we're there for you.
All right, thanks again, Tom, for your time. And make sure that you stay tuned right here, Power Automedia, for everything new coming out of PRI.